Hi friends, welcome to another chapter of Read Aloud. Today your thinking question is, in this chapter you're going to see a little bit more of Mavic and Aurella's teasing relationship, how they kind of make fun of each other and laugh at each other, but it's kind of all in good fun. I want you to think about if you have anyone in your life who you have that kind of relationship with, whether it's a friend or a sibling or an uncle. Just kind of think about if you relate to Aurella and Mavic and how they talk to each other and how they treat each other. Let's get into the chapter. Chapter 17, Crazy Wolf Girl. They were sitting around a fire, cooking some of the food Mavic stole from Tautic. Mavic had also taken a pot, so they chopped up the potatoes and vegetables into a stew that, despite the bland taste, was the best thing they'd eaten since escaping into the woods. Mavic, what do you think that guy was talking about when he said to return to him when the war is over? Aurella asked. We're not at war. Mavic rolled his eyes. Ella, he was obviously nuts. You can probably forget about everything he said. He was right about the fire, she pointed out. And he knew our names and a bunch of stuff about us. Yeah, he also thought we were on a quest, but quests are for heroes and cool people. We're just a couple of fugitives running from the law. His mouth twitched. Aurella swallowed another bite. Mavic, I'm pretty sure your definition of cool is exactly what you just described. You're right, he grinned. I've never felt cooler than when I called us a couple of fugitives running from the law. It was Aurella's turn to roll her eyes. I bet you still have that wanted poster in your pocket. What, this baby? He pulled the poster from his pocket and smoothed it out on his thigh. You have problems. The fire crackled, then dimmed, as one of the sticks collapsed and disintegrated. Aurella tilted her head and squinted at the fire. Hey, Mavic, can you make the fire bigger? You know, Elf, it's not that hard to poke it with a stick, he mumbled with his mouth full of food. No, I mean manipulate it. Warlocks can control the elements, right? So wouldn't fire fall into that category? Mavic's eyes brightened at the idea. Let me see. He made an upward motion with his hands, and the fire instantly blazed as high as the trees. The air gave off heat like the inside of an oven. Aurella and Mavic screamed and jumped backward before it burned off all their hair. Mavic tripped over a log and fell on his behind. Without thought, Aurella began shouting at the fire in the language of the witches. Clydeventia! Clydeventia! And the night was immediately dark again. Before Mavic got to his feet, the fire had fallen to the size of a candle flame, the ghost of the raging fire still dancing before their eyes with each blink. Mavic slowly turned to Aurella, his mouth agape. Ella, what did you do? Aurella blinked in shock. I did that? I thought you did. I didn't do anything except almost start a forest fire. I didn't even try to stop it. I was too busy picking my butt off the ground. How did you do that? I don't know. I just told it to shrink and smother itself. I didn't think it would actually work. It was an instinctive reaction. But that's warlock manipulation. Aurella pursed her lips. Witches can manipulate living things. Fire's not alive, Mavic argued. Aurella scowled, thinking. It can die, though, can't it? How can something die if it wasn't once alive? But it doesn't eat or reproduce or anything. Well, yeah, it kind of does. It eats air and flammable stuff and reproduces by spreading. Mavic scratched his chin. I guess you have a point. I've never read anything about witches manipulating fire, but clearly you can. If Morella was here, I'd... He stopped and stared strangely at her. What? She asked defensively, then noticed his silly childlike pout as his eyes narrowed and he folded his arms. Oh, come on, Mavic. Don't you say no fair, Mavic whined. You get fired too. I just barely figured out I can control it. And now you have to come and steal my thunder. Aurella sighed in exasperation. You should be grateful I was here to stop you from accidentally burning down the forest. I could have stopped it. I can't believe you're upset about this. You are such a child. She threw a pine cone at his chest. Says the actual child. Mavic threw a small stick into her hair. Isn't it your bedtime, little girl? Shut up, bonehead. She threw another pine cone, which he froze in the air and redirected back at her. That's it, Aurella grumbled. I'm going to bed. No, you're not. We need to finish this food. It's going to go bad. Fine. They gorged themselves until there was nothing left in the pot. They even took turns licking it. Well, Mavic licked it, then offered it to Aurella, who disgustedly declined. After eating so much food, Aurella laid down on a log and yawned widely. The sun had set beyond the horizon, and the sounds of crickets and owls pulsed through the forest. At one point, the sounds of the nighttime forest would keep Aurella awake. But now the sound was a comfort, a reminder that she was not alone, along with Mavic's snoring. She imagined it would be difficult to readjust to sleeping without it. Just as her dreams were about to overtake her, she felt a blanket draped over her exhausted body. Then the owls and crickets sang her to sleep. Owl, wake up! Mavic whispered in her ear. Aurella sat up with a start and pushed Mavic away. It was still dark, so something must have been wrong. Where are they? Leave us alone, you stupid clankers! Ella, shut up, growled Mavic. He clasped his hand over Aurella's mouth. She scowled and bit his middle finger. He jerked his hand away. Sick, Ella, just shut up, there's something in the trees. Immediately, Aurella was on guard. Her muscles tightened, and she could hear her pulse thundering in her ears. Small animals scattered, saving themselves. She scanned the area for danger. Sticks broke on the ground, and leaves crackled as someone, or something, slowly crept nearer. Aurella and Mavic stood side by side, straining their eyes to see into the trees. Another sound broke the silence, and Mavic stood protectively in front of Aurella. Who's there? He shouted. If you turn around now, we won't hurt you, but attack us, and you'll end up just like your other clanker friends. The stranger did not answer, but continued to creep closer. Stay back, Aurella warned. A deep growl ricocheted through the trees. Aurella spun toward the sound and saw the silhouette of a wolf, hunched forward, about to pounce. It slowly advanced into the light. It was the same mangy gray wolf that had chased her before, though she didn't know how she could tell. Her mouth popped open, and the ghost of her back wound tingled subconsciously. She could almost hear the gears in Mavic's brain working in overdrive to generate the best escape plan. She did not wait for him. In the back of her mind, she knew she could trick the wolf's senses. She knew she could easily escape without using much energy. Instead, she impulsively took 2 steps forward. Ella, no! Mavic hissed. Mavic, don't move! She hadn't meant to manipulate him, but he froze in place. The wolf barked low and rough, his tongue licking his teeth. Aurella stood her ground and looked the wolf straight in the eyes. Stop! The wolf stopped its advances toward her. She continued to stare it down. She'd learned about wolf packs once at school. It was time to put that knowledge to the test. Aurella took a deep breath and feigned confidence. I am not your enemy. I am your friend. You will not attack Mavic or me because I am the alpha now and you answer to me. The wolf whined and dipped its nose to the ground. Then he sat back on his hind legs and looked up at Aurella expectantly, his tail wagging slightly. Ella, what did you do? Mavic asked, his voice 2 octaves higher than normal. You can go now, but you will answer my call if I need you. Since you were the alpha of your pack, I'll call you Alfie. You may go. The wolf immediately bowed his head and ran back the way he'd come. Aurella's head protested angrily with a nasty headache as soon as the words left her mouth, but she hoped the energy expended would pay off. This was clearly the alpha wolf. If she could win him over, the rest of the pack would also be under her control, which might come in handy. Ella, can I please move now? She turned to look at Mavic, who was frozen with one arm stretched out toward her. She released the spell quickly. I'm sorry, Mavic, it was an accident. His eyebrows were so high, they almost touched his hairline. Later I'm gonna complain about that, but right now can you please explain to me what just happened? I manipulated the wolf to step down, she explained simply. He answers to me now, which means I control the pack. Mavic stared at her as if she'd just announced that she was going to have a sleepover with Sasha, the bully, and join her band of terrible songwriting. What? She asked. You are the strangest little creature I have ever met. Aurella punched his arm. She immediately cried out and hugged her hand to her chest. Mavic chuckled. Silly elf. Don't you know better than to punch a rock? Aurella glowered at him. Don't you know better than to insult a witch? I could totally make you punch yourself and it would be really easy. Mavic looked down at her and smiled somewhat patronizingly. Yes, but you wouldn't, would you? Just because you have the power to do something doesn't mean you should. Aurella frowned in confusion. It was always disorienting when Mavic started spouting random bits of wisdom. It's not like she could respond with a witty comeback. She looked down at her shoes. Okay, I said I was sorry for making you freeze earlier. It really was an accident. Mavic chuckled. It's all right, Elf. You're not the only one who loses it. Sometimes my arms can't control who they punch. Aurella smiled, and Mavic playfully messed up her hair. Go back to bed, little weirdo. Aurella followed his advice and climbed back into her makeshift bed of pine needles and a small blanket. It was a while before the little forest sounds re-emerged after the wolf incident, but eventually they returned, pulling Aurella back into her previous slumber. 2 days later, they'd eaten all the food they'd stolen from Taytautic. On the third day, their weariness became more apparent. They had no more food left, no idea how long until they found Morella again, and had only basic knowledge which berries and herbs were edible. Though the trees proved an excellent source of shade, the air was hot and caused sweat to drip down their backs. But on they trudged until evening, when an exhausted and hungry Mavic set up their makeshift camp. Mavic, what are we going to do about food? Aurella asked, slowly lowering her sore body to the ground. I'll have to go hunting. Why don't we go back to Taytautic's house and steal some more food? Are you kidding? If he's really a seer, wouldn't he be able to see us coming? And by the time we got there, the place would be crawling with clankers. Mavic, you don't know how to hunt. Well, we can't just sit here and starve to death. You don't even have any weapons. Mavic tore a branch from a tree and took a knife from his pocket. I'll make one. If you go, then let me come with you. No way, too dangerous. And this whole trip hasn't been dangerous at all yet, she muttered sarcastically. Look, I can manipulate them. It's safer if I go and you know it. Plus, remember the last time you left me alone? Didn't work out too well for either of us, did it? Mavic folded his arms and considered her words. All right. He sat cross-legged on the ground and began sharpening his branch into a smaller spear. Aurella drew random patterns in the dirt with her finger. It wasn't until she picked up her finger that she realized she'd drawn a wolf. Then she was seized by a crazy idea. Mavic, I think I have an idea. He raised an eyebrow. Yes? We could ask some friends to bring us food, she grinned. Mavic gave her the look. Oh, because we have so many friends out here in the woods. Why don't we ask Mr. Tree if he would mind producing an apple or two? Or maybe, if we're lucky, we'll run into another whack job and he'll offer us some food before tying us up and killing us. Not those kinds of friends, stupid. Hang on. She stood and cupped her hands around her mouth. Alfie, come here. I need your help. What did you just say? Mavic asked, hopping to his feet. I hate it when you talk like that with no warning. It's creepy. What are you trying to do? Just wait. Within a minute, the mangy gray wolf leapt through the trees and stood before Aurella. Mavic jumped back and grabbed his stick. Alfie growled and showed his menacing teeth. Drop the stick, Mavic. Why would I do that? He's not going to hurt us, but if you provoke him, he will. Mavic reluctantly let the stick fall to the ground. Alfie, stop! The wolf's growl was cut off, and his ears pressed shamefully against his head. He let out a small whine. Aurella slowly reached out her hand. At first, the wolf flinched away, but Aurella persisted bravely until she was stroking his face. She continued petting him and scratching behind his ears until he sat before her, wagging his tail. What's happening? Whispered Mavic. Shh! You're making him tense, Mavic. Chill. Aurella cupped Alfie's face in her hands. Alfie, we need your help. We need food. Bring us something to eat before the sun goes down, and I'll give part of it to you. The wolf bounded excitedly to his feet and raced into the forest. Howling and barking cut through the silence and slowly faded away. What the freak just happened? Mavic asked. I told the wolf to bring us food. That's a wild wolf, Ella. And you're scratching its ears like some pup from the village. He's cute, she muttered, somewhat defensively. I do kind of feel bad for manipulating him, though. You weirdo wolf lady. He shook his head in disbelief and walked away, muttering something about having such a bizarre life. An hour after the wolf incident, Mavic and Aurella sat before a fire in the dusk of the day. The flames flickered as they playfully fought over it, Mavic making it grow and Aurella smothering his progress. Suddenly, howling surrounded them. Mavic and Aurella jumped to their feet. Alfie and an entire wolf pack encircled their camp. Alfie barked, and two smaller wolves stepped into the circle, dragging a deer carcass. They laid it at Aurella's feet, stepped back into the circle, and wagged their tails proudly. Aurella felt the urge to throw up. You may go now. I will leave the remains for your pack when we leave. The wolves bowed and trotted back into the trees. That is disgusting, gagged Aurella, cringing away from the carcass. Now this is what I'm talking about, Mavic grinned. You stoke the fire. I'll take care of this wonderful meat. Wonderful meat? How do you know how to cook freshly killed deer? How do I know how to do anything? I'm Orphan Mavic, the jack of all trades. Well, good, because I'm not going anywhere near that thing. Aurella sat before the fire and urged it to grow and get hotter. She took a few steps back as the heat became more intense. She stared into the fire, dancing in the night, eating the air above it. Aurella wondered what it would be like in Rashtika, where everyone held this power. She tried to imagine how different it would be. Perhaps there was more violence, or maybe people were trained well enough to exercise self-control. She imagined a family cooking by manipulating fire, a father fixing a leak in the roof from inside the house, a mother manipulating her child to have sweet dreams. Suddenly she felt a stab of homesickness. It didn't matter how wonderful or compelling the call to freedom was. She would rather be sitting in her simple cottage with her blacksmith father and her baker mother, laughing over their chicken and dumplings and dancing in the kitchen. Mavic waved his hand in front of Aurella's face. Knock, knock. Is Aurella home? What? She blinked and shook her head, dispelling her daydreams. Want some food? He shoved a stick of meat in her face. I call this Mavic's Toasted Delight, because it's crispy with a very pleasant hint of sweetness. Aurella stared at the hunk of meat. It did not look very appetizing. How exactly am I supposed to eat that? He sat down and looked at her very intensely. I've had many a person ask me that very question. Now, there's a science to this, so listen carefully. When a person wishes to put nourishment into their body, the food must enter in through the mouth. When the said person is ready to eat the said food, they bring it close to their face and open their mouth wide, like so. Then, oh my gosh, Mavic, shut up. Just give me the stinking deer kebab. He grinned and passed her the hunk of meat on a stick. Even though it was a bit gamey for her taste, the food was heavenly. When she was good and full, she passed the rest over to Mavic, who gorged it down in about 3 bites. How much is left? Aurella asked. He licked his fingers. Well, I'm going to dry some of it out to make jerky, but don't worry, there's still plenty you can use as an offering to your wolfy friends. Once again, Mavic, you're just jealous, because now I have a bunch of cool animals that find pleasure in doing whatever I say. Are you kidding me? He rolled his eyes melodramatically. I am not jealous. Aurella grinned. If you say so. Mavic playfully shoved her shoulder and stood up. You may be a powerful little witch girl, but I'm still older than you, so technically, you have to do what I say. Whatever. When do I ever do what you say? Mavic frowned. You do kind of suck at it. Aurella wanted to act offended, but something about Mavic's expression made her laugh. They finished eating and continued to tease and argue until they had eaten all they could. Aurella climbed into their wannabe tent and closed her eyes. She fell asleep with her golden amber hair sprawled over the dirt and twigs, a peaceful smile on her face. What would she do without Mavic? All right, that is the end of this chapter. The next chapter is chapter 18, and it's called How Mavic and Aurella Kicked Butt. Thanks again for listening in on another chapter of Read Aloud. Just a reminder, your thinking question is there anyone in your life who you have a relationship with that's similar to Aurella and Mavic's, in how they kind of tease and laugh at each other, but you know deep down they actually care about each other quite a bit? So just kind of think about that, and we will read the next chapter tomorrow. See you guys. Bye.